Welcome to the EEP Africa studio. Today I am speaking with Jonker Klunne, who is the lead coordinator at the EEP Africa. Welcome, Wim.
Thank you.
Wim, we're going to be talking about the funding of mini-grid projects in Africa, and mini-grids being something that can really bring electricity to a lot more people. So at the EEP, what have you found have been the difficulties in terms of funding the mini-grid projects?
Well, a good question and difficult to answer actually. As you might know, we have funded about 225 projects. Only about 10% is mini-grids. And they range from very small, low voltage to, let's say, your standardized mini-grid projects. But what we would typically see is that project developers have a difficulty getting that initial funding. That funding to really kickstart operations, either to do full feasibility or full technical assessment, or once they've got all that pieces together, that money to really implement in the field, or to come to that skill that they can really operate as a proper business.
Right. So in terms of the stakeholders that are involved in the mini-grids, have they come to you with any particular challenges or success stories?
Well, we have actually quite a number of success stories within our own portfolio of mini-grids. And what is actually very interesting to see is that most of the mini-grid developers we have supported came together and founded the African Mini-Grid Developers Association. So they're now having a common voice and they can exchange experience, etc. And nearly all the mini-grid developers that part of that association actually were nurtured through our seed funding that we have provided. So there is a lot of issues that they're working on, particularly to get clarity on regulation, licenses, etc. And see that have a proper dialogue with government, that government really understands what the private sector is doing in the mini-grid space and how they can support government in providing energy access to the people.
So it's become a two-way conversation.
And definitely it is, and we do need that, because what we've seen in the past is that government is one way, grid extension, and they weren't too open, or most of them I'd say, weren't too open to engage with private sector and see how they can support their drive for universal access. And we see that changing. We see some countries that really get some policies, regulation in place in support of the private sector running that. So I'm quite confident that we're heading in the right direction.
Right. So in terms of the clean energy, renewable energy that is being implemented in mini-grids, what are the projects that stand out for you? And I know you're very interested in East Africa, and there are a lot of projects that have now come into the news. But which ones stand out for you?
Again, it's a bit difficult. Our mini-grids primarily are in East Africa. We like to see that they also come into the other countries we're operating. Remember, we work in 15 countries in the region. And indeed, most of our mini-grids are in Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda. We really like to see them to come to, let's say, Zambia, South Africa, any of the other countries we do support. What we see is that some of the mini-grid developers have been able to integrate different types of technologies, making sure that they have a good business model behind that. I'm hesitant to single out one, but there was one. I was in a mini-grid session at the conference here on the first day, and I think we had representatives of mini-grid developers in that audience, and two of them were actually EEP grantees. One of them was a project in Uganda, Gitoba Island. It's an island in the Lake Victoria, where they've provided energy access to a substantial number of people, including businesses, and integrated solar panels, radix flow batteries, etc. And that's one of the examples. We have many more of those.
Yeah, I know that you have quite a few projects on the go. Do you see yourselves as being at the forefront of mini-grid development worldwide?
Worldwide, I'm not sure what I can say that, but in general, the EEP program has been able to really kickstart a lot of businesses, and we play a very important role in that very early stage. Not only for mini-grids, I mean, that's, as I said, 10% of our portfolio, but also in generic solar systems, hydropower, wind power, improved cook stoves, etc. And we really play an important role for those project developers to get the project going. They find it very difficult. And once they've proven that, we actually assist them in getting access to other financiers for the follow-up finance.
So what is the future for EEP Africa?
The future looks bright, actually, I have to say. We just relaunched as a multi-donor trust fund under the Nordic Development Fund since early January. And actually, at the Africa Utility Week, we did launch our first call of proposals in this new setup. We had a full house. I was very glad to see that. And we're looking forward to continuously having new calls for proposals open. We have new donors signing up to the fund. So I would say it looks bright.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Wim.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for watching. I'm Nicolette Pomper-Van-Sale, editor of ESI Africa, broadcasting from the African Utility Week studio. See you next year.